Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeb Teichman. I am a pediatrician and member of the board of directors of Families Fighting Flu. And I'm here today to talk a little bit about flu and share my family's story. And without further ado, I'm here today to put a face on influenza, that of my son, whom we lost to its complications. But before I do this, please indulge me while I tell you a little bit about my son. Brent was a wonderful brother, son, uncle, and friend who had a passion for whatever he did in life. He was a self-taught musician and leader of his high school garage band. He loved watching sports, especially, much to my chagrin, that blue team that is 90 miles east of me here in Louisville, whose name I will not mention. He loved cooking for his family when we would gather. And if Brent had a fault, it was that he worked for a caterer and didn't know how to scale down a recipe for a wedding of 150 people to our small Thanksgiving gathering for five or six. And I would have leftovers forever. He brought life to the party with his smile, his wit, and his humor. On November 2nd, 2019, my wife and I were 650 miles from home when just before midnight, I got a call from Brent's cousin and roommate, Jake, that he couldn't wake Brent up. Brent first reached out to me 3 days before his passing to tell me that he had been sick for 3 days with fever, cough, and sore throat, a classic influenza-like illness. It was too late to start him on antivirals, so I gave him advice on symptomatic treatment and told him to stay in touch. We texted the next day, and I was gratified to hear that he was feeling better, his fever was trending down, and he was doing much better. I heard from him again 2 days later when he called to tell me that he was having trouble breathing, and over the phone I could hear him hyperventilating. Brent didn't have any health insurance, and not knowing how sick he was, I sent him to seek care at an urgent care center, figuring that if he were really that sick, they'd appropriately triage him to the emergency department. That's the biggest regret of my life, for I feel like if I had sent him to the emergency department to begin with, he'd still be here today. 4 hours later, I got that call. I told Jake to hang up and call 911, and the 911 operator talked Jake into doing CPR on his cousin and his best friend. And to this day, Jake is forever traumatized. I called back a few minutes later and asked Jake to hold up the phone so I could hear EMS working on my son trying to revive him, calling for round after round after round of epinephrine. And to this day, when I close my eyes at night, I can still hear the beeping of those monitors. The official cause of death was multilobar pneumonia, etiology undetermined. But after 30 plus years as a pediatrician, 20 years as a CDC influenza sentinel, I know the flu when I see it. Brent had no chronic health conditions that would have made him high risk for complications of influenza. He was a healthy 29-year-old. There's a hole in our hearts that will never heal. The loss of a child is devastating no matter what the age. And the irony here is that throughout my years as a pediatrician, I've always been a tireless advocate for all vaccinations. I always made sure that my family got their flu shots every year, sometimes bringing the nasal vaccine home and squirting everybody's noses. But when they're 29 years old and they think they're invincible, you can no longer grab them by the hand and make sure they get vaccinated. We reminded Brent to get his flu vaccine several weeks before his passing, and he said he had it on his to-do list, but he just never got around to it. In his obit, we asked that in lieu of flowers, people post pictures of them getting their flu shots. And we are to this day, we are uplifted by them doing so. I've joined with families fighting flu so that Brent's legacy will be increasing the acceptance of flu vaccination. Because as we all know, it's not just the flu. It can take the life of a healthy young man. And it did. It took my son. As I said, Brent was a healthy 29-year-old. He wasn't vaccinated, and life happened, right? He had getting vaccinated on his to-do list, but he just never got around to it.